Hello again guys, welcome back to part 3 of my Fury guide, and now we're going to go over rotation. We're going to go over the initial burst phase, the single target, the AoE rotation, and then the execute phase. I'll try to explain it even though it's not particularly easy due to the fact we don't have training dummies that allow you to execute, but that's fine. So first thing you're going to want is something that's going to track your enrage. I personally use the filters for my LVUI, they come up above here, and I can see when my enrage is up. And the reason we want this is because you're going to have to use Berserker Rage when you're not enraged. Basically, you're going to want to keep that damage up so you've got that extra 10%. The only other time you want to use Berserker Rage rather, is when you have no Rage and Blow procs and there's nothing else to do. If it's there, get it up, Rage and Blow, and then you'll probably have that GCD which will allow Bloodthirst to come up, and then you get back into a normal rotation. So, something to bear in mind. But for the most part, we're going to follow Smash, which is the add-on that I showed you last time. And it does a pretty good job. It's not 100% perfect, so definitely still read up and look up on these things. But basically what you're going to want to do is Bloodthirst on cooldown unless you have 2 stacks of Rage and Blow. If you have 2 stacks of Rage and Blow, you're going to want to use one and then you Bloodthirst again. If you're about to top out on Rage, you're going to want to Wild Strikes. If you have the Wild Strikes proc and you are still topping out on Rage, you're going to want to use that 3 times. That is priority Wild Strikes, and do not top your Rage. Execute after that if it's procced, and Stormbolt is actually pretty low. Stormbolt's not particularly high on the priority list. So let's go over it again. Priority is going to be Wild Strike to make sure you're underneath 80% Rage. You're going to want to execute if it's procced. You're going to want to Rage and Blow if you have 2 stacks. And then you're going to want to Bloodthirst on cooldown if possible. It sounds weird, like it's so low on the priority, but Bloodthirst on cooldown is really important. It's kind of strange. It's kind of between doing all these things, you want to try and squeeze in a Bloodthirst. It's kind of easier to show you, and the Smash add-on will kind of give you more of an idea. But anyway, let's get to the initial burst phase, shall we? Now the add-on, the macro rather, I showed you in the last thing will help you out in the last video. We're going to charge, we're going to use Recklessness, we're going to Stormbolt, use both our trinkets if they have a use effect, we're going to cast all our buffs, and then we're just going to go ham, basically. So, let's try it out, let me show you. So we're going to cast that, we're going to charge in, we're going to cast everything, we're going to execute because it's up, we're going to Rage and Blow, we Bloodthirsted straight away, we Bloodthirst again, Rage and Blow, Wild Strikes, we got another Rage and Blow up, now we're going to use this. Bloodthirst is up again, that's perfect, Rage and Blow. We're getting close to topping out on Rage, so we're going to Wild Strikes. We got our Wild Strikes procs, Rage and Blow, Bloodthirst, Wild Strikes, and that's kind of it. We got no Enrage, so we're going to Berserker Rage. I'm going to try and keep that damage up. And that's it. From here we go into our standard single target rotation. And that's going to be just the priority system I said before, and Smash is going to really help you out with that. So we've got our 2 procs there. We're going to use Victory Rush. And Execute is up. Stormbolt. Rage and Blow. We're getting really high on Rage, so we're going to Wild Strikes. Still pretty high, so we're going to Wild Strikes again. And Rage is about to fall off, but we got another one. So we don't need to use Berserker Rage right now. Use our procs, and Rage is about to fall off. Do we get another one? We do. Don't use Berserker Rage. We're going to Wild Rage and Blow. And we're just going to kind of keep this thing going, right? So, it's not too bad. And Rage is always up, which is really good. You will get a small fall off until about 11%, which is when we're going to have enough haste. 11% haste rather, which is when we're going to have enough haste that we can Bloodthirst enough to keep Enrage up 100%. But until then, we're going to have a little bit of fall off in between, but that shouldn't be a problem. And that's kind of it. The DPS isn't brilliant because I'm kind of half-assed looking at the rotation more than kind of the priority system. But yeah, so Smash is a really good add-on for kind of following and it giving you information on what to do next. If it's completely blank like this, that means you just don't press anything. It will tell you when to use Berserker Rage because it knows you're not enraged. It's going to tell you to Bloodthirst. It's going to tell you to Stormbolt. It's going to tell me to Wild Strikes and Execute. Wild Strikes again. Bloodthirst. Wild Strikes. Rage and Blow. Bloodthirst. And yeah, it does a really good job of kind of keeping you above the average and keeping your performance up, even if you're not too used to the rotation. So I really do highly recommend that. So what is our AoE rotation? Well, if it's a highly AoE fight, there's a few things we're going to do. And we're going to take Ravager instead, and maybe Bladestorm. Bladestorm is pretty huge. Ravager is also pretty huge. These are for kind of fights where you have 4 or more mobs. So maybe Tectus. It depends, because there's also a lot of that fight where you're not. I mean, for Tectus, I'd probably keep Anger Management, but take Bladestorm, for example. That kind of thing. And yeah, but if you're just looking at 2 or 3 packs of 2 or 3 mobs in a pack, then what you're going to want to do is where you can actually do it with this add-on. So if we go into our interface, let's go to key bindings, other, and you're going to have smash. Now you can toggle targets up or down. So if I put my plus there, for example, and targets minus, so okay. Now what you're going to see is there's a little number that pops up. So I'm going to see 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, and 4, and 4 plus. So if I have 2, it's going to change my rotation. It's going to say, right, I want to execute, I want to whirlwind, I want to do that, I want to rage and blow, I want to execute, rage and blow. And it's going to kind of say, hey, this is what you should be doing if you're fighting 2 mobs. And you can see it makes a difference for sure, like, and then you're going to track your whirlwind procs with the resource manager here as well. So it's really, really good. And that's another thing. So yeah, the main thing about the AoE rotation is that whirlwind now replaces wild strikes. That's mainly it. And after you've whirlwind up to twice, you will gain your what they called stacks, meat cleaver stacks, which allows your rage and blow to AoE proc as well. So that's kind of the idea behind it. Is you whirlwind, that gives you 1 stack of rage and blow. That's going to hit 2 targets or 3 targets. But if you keep going and you whirlwind, so you get enough rage, whirlwind twice, you're going to get 2 stacks of it, and that's going to allow you to hit 5 targets. So when you rage and blow, it should hit 5 targets. That's the idea, at least. So that's kind of your AoE rotation right there. And of course, again, if you want to go 3 or 4 plus targets, it will change the rotation in Smash again. As you can see, look, it's asking me to use whirlwind twice in a row there because it knows that I should have more stacks as I'm raging blowing. Raging blowing, there we are, that's the thing. So there you are, that's kind of your AoE rotation, and it's pretty cool. Now Smash will also do the execute phase for you, but basically the idea is, let me get out of this, let's reset Smash. Right. So the idea is that what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to wild strikes only when it's procced. You do not want to use rage up with wild strikes. Just use the 2 free ones, and that's pretty much it. You don't want to use wild strikes otherwise. You want to bloodthirst as much as possible on cooldown, absolutely every time bloodthirst, and then you just spam execute. If you have rage and blow procs and your execute isn't up, press rage and blow. It's still good DPS, and then just use the GCD from rage and blow to wait for another bloodthirst, and then you bloodthirst, and then you execute, and then you bloodthirst, and you execute, bloodthirst, execute. Use your berserker rage whenever your enrage falls off. Just standard stuff, except you just want to be spamming execute as much as possible. That should be self-explanatory, really. I'm sure most of you are doing that already, but that's the idea. I really wish I could show you, but I can't be asked to go all the way over to Mr. Pandaria, whatever the place was, to use their low health dummies. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I really hope that's helped, and I'm sure I shall see you next time. Take care. Bye bye now.